In what ways have you tricked your pet?
My dogs appear to think the front door and the back door lead to different worlds. The front door leads to exciting places like the park, the vet, the hamburger place, and the place where humans hunt and bring home large pieces of meat and produce. The back door just leads to the yard where they poop. When I go out the front door, even if it's just to get the trash cans from the end of the drive, they bark in excitement as I go and as I return. My girl greets me in throes of ecstatic joy like she hasn't seen me in weeks. Sometimes, when I don't want them to get worked up, I'll go out the back door. It doesn't matter how long I'm gone, as long as I come back in through that door, they think I've been in the yard and are indifferent to my comings and goings. Harry has a favorite stuffed toy that he chews on and sleeps with. I was cleaning up one day and tossed his stuffy in the laundry. When I gave it back, Harry smelled it then walked away. He missed the stinky, familiar smell of his favorite toy. I understand this. When my son was an infant and toddler, he had a cloth diaper/drool cloth that he carried everywhere to soothe himself while sucking his thumb or pacifier. Once a week I collected laundry including his blankies and did a bleach wash. When I put him to bed that night, he got angry and wouldn't stop crying. He said Brett's mad. I asked why. He said blankie is bad, it doesn't smell good. I sniffed it and it smelled like clean laundry. By washing it, I took away the familiar soothing smell. From then on, unless he had a cold or was ill, I didn't bleach those cloth diaper blankies, just washed them in detergent. Maybe once a month, I would bleach them. I learned to tell him first and had him help to collect all the blankies and put them in a small blanket. I put them in the washer with detergent and bleach. By having him collect them, he knew they would be clean and stinky. His word for chlorine bleach smell. Once I wash Harry's monkey toy, I put it in my bed and sleep on it for a night or two before giving it back to him. Since it has my scent, he doesn't reject it. My dog is on a diet to keep his weight down, because he has hip dysplasia. As a result, he's always hungry and is not picky. He'll even eat vegetables, and thinks his arthritis pills and flea treatments are tasty dog treats. Trick number 1. Of course, he's a lab, and labs are hoovers with tails, but he's worse than many due to his circumstances. But my favorite trick is when he's outside, and he wanders over to the neighbor's house. When I want him home, and he ignores his name, I yell oatmeal. Rookie's head snaps up like it's on a spring, and he trots home, slobber starting to drip out of his happy dog lips, and he heads straight for his bowl. But, for the trick to work every time, there'd better be something there for him. It doesn't have to be oatmeal. Just a treat. The thumbnail pic that is my ID here is of Franz. He was the smartest dog we ever had, and yet he was the only disobedient shepherd we ever had. When I took our shepherds out to run in an overgrown parking lot north of the baseball stadium, the other dogs would get back in the car but he wouldn't. So I would pretend to drive off and leave him and he would run alongside the car. So I'd stop to let him in and he'd shy off. To anybody watching, it would look like I was abandoning him, which really embarrassed me, so I kept stopping to let him in the car but he wouldn't get in until we were almost all of the way home. So one day we were driving up Grant Boulevard, a busy arterial, and after I passed Lemoyne Avenue I slowed down to pace him and opened the door. He grinned and kept running up alongside the car and suddenly I hit the brakes and reached out to grab his collar. I tried that trick again a week later and he didn't fall for it. The same thing happened with other dogs who were not as smart. Trick them once and you can't ever trick them again. Once I was visiting my sister from about 120 miles away. Before I left to go home, she had to leave for work, so I said I'd put her chocolate lab in the house and lock up before I left. Well, that smart dog figured out I was its last hope to stay outside, and nothing I could do would get him to go inside. I tried tugging, pushing, getting a leash out to fool him. No success. I had an errand to run 10 miles in the opposite direction, so I left the dog in the fenced backyard, figuring I'd have to text my sister that the dog just wouldn't go inside. But on the way back, I stopped in again, and had a great idea. Sometimes if a dog doesn't see you for a while, it thinks you've been gone a long time. So I got out of the car and acted like I had just arrived from 120 miles away. The dog got all excited and I played along, and when I let myself back into the house, he followed me without a moment's hesitation. When we got into the kitchen, I petted him and said goodbye, and he looked kind of dejected as I let myself out and locked the door behind me. In subsequent visits, all was apparently forgiven, or most likely forgotten. One of my cats, Bailey, used to ignore dried treats that were still uneaten in the dish from earlier. She wanted fresh treats from the can, so would sit at her dish eyeing me and expecting me to add to the dish from the treat can. I would then take the still closed treat can and shake it over the dish. Nothing, of course, would fall into the dish, but she would then eat the treats thinking they were now fresh from the can. Eventually, she learned my trick and no longer fell for it. However, with the addition of a new cat, Ruguru, 3 years ago, if she doesn't want the treats now, Ruguru will be more than glad to eat her uneaten, stale treats. Back when I was a kid in the 1960s, the family dog, Snoopy, had a great hatred of ticks, and would bite them viciously whenever he found one on him or on the floor. I would take an inked pen, and draw a picture of a tick on a sheet of paper, and lay it on the floor, and Snoopy would try to bite the drawing of a tick. I obtained my fourth cat, Rocket, through trickery. He had taken up residence on my back patio of my apartment, but would not let me anywhere near him. I noticed, though, that when I set some food out for him, he lost all concern for my whereabouts as he went after the food. So after a few nights of setting the food out, I decided to lunge for him and grab him. The deception worked perfectly, but when I grabbed him, I underestimated his strength, and he squirmed away. He fell for the trick again the second night, and this time I held on for dear life. He clawed me pretty good trying to get away, but I held on while on my elbows, and managed to get him in the house. It took about a week before he quit hiding under the bed every time he saw me. They sometimes act like they don't want to eat. So I pick up their bowl and pretend to eat their food, all the time making yummy sounds. Then I offer them a bite, and they then want to eat. Sometimes my male even barks at me to put his bowl back down. My cat thought for a couple of years that he somehow switched the TV on and off. Each time I did either with the remote control when he was in the room, I would first ask him to do it. Sometimes, I'd have to coax him a bit, others he would surprise me. He would give this strange yip he never made otherwise. I always happily praised and thanked him just like when any pet does a trick on demand, but extra enthusiasm when he surprised me, meaning I forgot to ask him. The expression on his face when he turned, saw me using the remote, looked back at the TV, then right at me. He was visibly angry, glaring at me in betrayal. Yes, he cashed in good, with extra kitty treats.
Please leave your story in the comments. I would love to make a video on them in the future also. Don't forget to like and subscribe to you never miss a video.